45-pound year.
The CrossFit Games Open has arrived, baby. Let's get this party started. Hello, I'm Rory Mckernan alongside my good friends Pat Sherwood and Miranda Oldroyd.
Thanks, Ro.
If you were with us last year, we're glad to have you back. And if you're new to the community, welcome to the CrossFit Games Studio Show. Today, it's all about review, preview. We have a recap of last year's games, a look at the road ahead, and our picks for the athletes you need to keep an eye on for 2012. As the 2012 game season gets underway, we should let everyone know that we'll be here every step of the way, from the first workout this week all the way to the finals at the Home Depot Center in July, where the best of the best will compete for $250,000. And Pat, the title fittest on earth.
Unbelievable. Doesn't it feel like we just did this and here we are again, the season's upon us. And look at this fancy new set, amazing. A lot of blue, but we like it. And on top of that, we've got predictions, we've got analysis, we have debate, we have forecasts, all kinds of good things happening in the show, but also the classic fun you've come to expect and plenty of new shenanigans.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up, but let's talk about why we're here now. Tomorrow marks the beginning of the Open, and with it, the 2012 CrossFit Games season. Workout number 1 is coming your way at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
And aside from the Open being my perfect medium to highlight my amazing fitness to the entire world, it does serve some very important concepts, kind of a flagship for some core concepts of CrossFit. First and foremost being, the Open represents the egalitarian nature of the competition. If we're going to claim that we're identifying the fittest individuals on the entire planet, we have to make our competition available to the widest test group possible. This task wouldn't even have been possible had we not made the competition virtual.
Well, you're in luck, because now you and anyone who thinks they can compete with the fittest on earth can do so if they've got $20, some basic equipment, and an internet connection.
It might take just a little bit more than that for me.
$30.
Of course, all of these concepts come from the mind of CrossFit CEO and founder Greg Glassman. CrossFit's director of media, Tony Budding, had a chance to sit down with Coach and dig into the methods behind the madness.
We really didn't have a choice but for the Open. This was never going to be true to its claim, a test to find a method for finding and developing the world's fittest human beings until that base pool of starters is large, and it will someday be 1 million people that are going to, you start with the claim, look, first year you're going to have a competition, you have no resources, you're going to find the fittest man alive. It may be actually the fittest guy in your neighborhood or amongst your friends, but that's okay. The important thing is not the veracity of the claim, but the fact that you'll be willing to do it next year and crown someone other than those that you found. And that requires an ever-broadening, widening pool of people. And I don't like the notion of I'm the fittest guy that could travel to this location, or the fittest guy in the world that has heard of CrossFit, or, we've got something special now. We may end up with 50, 75, 100,000 people starting this year. Eventually the game start will look like, if you look at the Super Bowl winner, how big is that pool? Well, it's not just everyone in the NFL. It's all those people that played college ball, and everyone that played high school ball, and everyone that played Pop Warner.
Right. And everybody who decided not to go for soccer or tennis or baseball, but to go to football.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so if you looked at that pool, how many kids play, American football at the middle school level, and maybe it's several million people. But we're not going to get the stability in our placeholders, nor will we really, ultimately we will be truest to this claim when those numbers get huge.
Coach just always has a way of saying things so that I can understand them. Pat, you touched on the same concept earlier. Coach again is reemphasizing it here. If we're going to claim we're crowning the fittest person in the world, we have to make our competition available to everyone in the world. So we're taking that barrier to entry down. Let's paint a better picture by using some numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year we had 26,000 individual athletes competed in the Open. That's a lot. By the end of the season, there was no doubt that Rich Froning Jr. and Annie Thorsdottir were the fittest man and woman respectively on planet Earth. 26,000, impressive. However, this year, everything is just more, bigger, better, more inclusive. So let's dive into the numbers for 2012. Here's what we have. As of right now, 46,000 individual athletes signed up to compete.
It's worth saying that one more time. 46,000 people. Now, 1,477 teams have already signed up. That's up 500 from last year.
I'll give you a number. 4,000. That's how many people signed up as an individual yesterday in one single day, and the tide is still rising.
The old last-minute folks. Also, 1,448 affiliates have opted into the competition right now. That seems like a lot, but it's not when you put it in perspective of the 46,000 individual athletes that need somewhere to do these workouts. Remember, affiliates, you can't validate workouts if you're not signed up, so opt in right now, don't wait.
We may be watching very many video submissions in the near future. So guys, get ready for bragging rights now. We've got the numbers on overall participation. The East Coast is crushing it. Northeast, way out in front, 4,800 people signed up so far. That's almost 1,000 more than the closest regions, Southeast and Australia.
We have got to pick it up over here on the West Coast, or we might have to start publishing the workouts on Eastern Time. Ooh. Biggest team so far, also from the East Coast, CrossFit NYC has 359 members signed up. It is incredible.
I don't know a lot of gyms that have 359 members total, much less participating in the Open. This blows my mind, all of these numbers. I hope the significance is not lost. We're almost double the participation of individuals from last year, and we still have through Sunday until we find out where those numbers are going to lie. Lots of craziness in the CrossFit world this week. Up next on the show, Sevan Mattosian is coming out with his crystal ball, maybe some predictions for 2012. I'm sure that he's also going to gloat about his uncanny predictions last year. We'll be right back.
So I think the Open is very indicative of what we're going to see at the Games. Extremely, except for the first two places. And Dan Bailey and Joshua Bridges, great athletes,
right?
But they're runts. Cookeville, Tennessee, home of the 2011 CrossFit Games champion, Rich Froning.
Calling it.
Yeah.
Calling it.
I mean, I'm not going out on a limb. I'm not going out on a limb by saying he is hands down the winner and only second, third, and fourth is available.
You are or not saying that?
I am saying that.
And now you're turning your back on Miko.
I know.
I really like Miko. Miko, I really like you. Rich Froning's going to win it, you know? You're going to take home $50,000, all right? You're going to get second place.
You have just witnessed Sevan Mattosian, who joins us now in the CrossFit studio. Welcome to the show.
Well,
gentlemen.
The Mad Dog. Really, no filmmaker has covered the CrossFit Games like Sevan, and I would say nobody has access to the athletes that you have. Now, last year you came on and nailed it. You were like the prophet. You talked about number 1 and number 2 in the male and female competition, hit it right on the head. But it was a little bit abrasive for some people. They kind of took issue with the way that you presented the material. Did you feel any blowback for that?
Rory, I don't let my personal choices interfere with my professional decision. My personal choices, Cheryl Brost, Bill Grunler. Those are my personal choices. That's who I want to win the Games. I don't let that interfere.
You don't get clouded by emotion.
No, not at all. And so last year I gave it to you raw and real. And I'm ready to do it again. It's still a little early in the season. I hope you'll have me back, maybe later. but I've seen enough to go out on a limb a little bit.
I mean, just to say the least, we appreciate it. I mean, you keep it real, and it's good to hear actually that you're not going to change your wicked ways necessarily. You're gonna bring it this time. You're gonna kind of bring the heat and let us know what's going to happen this year in the competition.
for sure, and if you didn't, what would everyone on the internet comment about, right? You need to get out there and make some opinions. So with that unique perspective that Rory talked about, who are the women that you like this year to be just crushing the Open, heading to the Games, and just, going to be the champs?
The women's class is very obvious. Anyone at home could have done this. It's going to be Annie Thorsdottir, Kristen Clever, Rebecca Voigt, and Julie Fouché will fight it out for 3rd and 4th place, and 5th place will be Sam Briggs. Now let's talk about the men.
Right?
That
Done.
is so specific.
I like that.
So specific. Okay, so number one, I'm gonna say, hey, dude, this is a little bit safe, but so you're going with Annie again.
Annie cannot be beat. Strong, fast, smart, uber competitive, mega competitive, ultra competitive.
She's competitive.
The most competitive.
So
yeah,
what you're saying
I do anything to win. Fierce competitor. Kristen Clever, she sets herself away from the rest of the pack, but she's a little bit older and didn't have the room to improve that Annie has. Annie's young. She's a baby. And so she's probably improved 20%, while Kristen's maybe improved 10%, let's say.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you too much because of Annie came in 2009 and she had so many skills that were completely lacking. She did so well still. But you're kind of on fire about this thing with Annie, her competitiveness.
Sure.
And you said there's one thing that can keep her off the top spot.
Annie has been filmed recently doing what I call the knot squat. It's a variation of the air squat.
Trademark.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one yet.
It's a variation of the air squat, but it does not count in the CrossFit Games. It doesn't quite go low enough, and it doesn't quite come high enough.
Sounds fast.
And there was there's a great video on the internet, 2-minute video, Reebok made promoting the games. They're doing a great job promoting the games. But this video didn't do a great job promoting the air squat or Annie's movement. If Annie does do that, if that wasn't just a fluke, then that would be her demise.
I mean, she's fairly proven in battle. So I mean, you're more or less saying, hey, get it together, as opposed to, I mean, she's not going to do this in competition. You don't really think that, do you?
I hope not. No, yeah. I mean, I'm 99% sure she won't. But I am surprised to see her actually even doing it in a video.
No, they had no judge there.
They had no judge there. That's correct. They had no judge. But still, I mean, I expect that
you expect better things from a champion.
Not necessarily. I don't want to say better things, but I know she knows what correct movement feels like.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to put a moral or ethical blah blah blah, and I just it feels. You know, and we've had other people mess up the air squat. We had Brian Shantosh mess it up. We've had Miko mess it up. We've had Spieler mess it up, and they've been called on it and corrected it.
Yeah.
But this is bad.
You're just here to make friends.
Yeah.
So I
love those guys.
We got to move on from the women.
Okay.
So I've got it. Annie, Kristen, you went and you aimed the whole top 5. Very impressive.
Yep.
Now you recently got back from Tennessee.
No unknowns in the women's class.
No unknowns in the women's class.
Yeah, if you're a woman and you're unknown, stay home. There's no unknowns this year.
Let's move on to the men.
Okay.
You were in Tennessee with last year's champ.
Last year's champ, Rich Froning.
And he's got a new training partner.
Yes.
Junior,
yeah, because his dad's Rich Froning. And
talk to me about the trip. Talk to me more specifically about the athletes.
Dan Bailey and Rich Froning lived together. But let's flash back 8 months. Dan Bailey was training with Graham Holmberg, Miko Salo, and now Rich Froning. 3 champs in a row. I'm not talking about 1 day of training or 2 days of training. I'm talking about extensive training with all the champs building up to the games this year. What's that say about Dan Bailey? He's committed. He's probably improved more than anyone else. He has more experience going into these games than anyone else with advanced high-level programming.
So turn that into something. He was 6th place last year. He's going to be?
He will be 3rd place this year, or 4th. Nice. He's going to war it out with Graham Holmberg.
Okay, so you've just taken Graham and Dan off of the top 2.
Yes, Graham and Dan Bailey, 3rd and 4th place. I'm not sure who.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I need those top 2 though. Who?
And the 2 places, 1 and 2 could be. I mean, 1 and 2 is tight. 1 and 2 is tight.
This from the president of the Rich Froning fan club.
1 and 2 is tight.
Rich may be beaten by who?
5th place will be an unknown in the men's division. 5th place will be an unknown.
Okay.
And 6th place will be Chris Spieler.
Okay, so Chris Spieler, and again, you're still avoiding my question. Who is going to beat Rich Froning?
Ben Smith is amazing.
Ben Smith, good call.
A freak of nature. The guy, he trains in front of a refrigerator. That's because he needs that protein immediately after he works out. Every video I see of him, he's in front of a refrigerator doing something.
He's a beast. So are you telling me that he's going to maybe knock Rich off that top spot?
I think there are 3 things that could stop Rich Froning from winning the games. And so it makes me, I'm a little hesitant to say that Rich will win it.
Break it down.
What do you have?
In this order, the first thing that could stop Rich from winning the CrossFit Games is a mob of angry women.
We understand that.
Yeah. And maybe they're not angry, but they're a mob of women.
Yeah, he's recently been taken off the market, but you're saying that they don't care necessarily.
Well, these women don't care, the women I'm talking about. Number 2, he could stumble onto the set of the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner show and a piano could land on his head. And number 3, Ben Smith. In that order, those are the threats to Rich Froning.
So there's an act of God and an angry mob of women in front of him. I need an answer from you. Is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? Who's going to win? Who is your pick for the male champion of the 2012 CrossFit Games?
Make a call.
Let me say one thing before I say the name. The guy I'm going to choose took 27th place in one of the events last year and still won the games. That's why this year, my pick, I carry this in my wallet.
That's how you roll.
That is
This
really,
year, my pick.
really creepy.
Creepy.
Yeah,
Very
Rich
creepy.
Froning. Rich Froning.
Soaking wet.
Clearly
Yeah.
Rich Froning in a mural type photo, and at one
Yeah.
point there may be a hearing for a restraining order of some sort, and I want to say that me and Pat had absolutely
Yeah,
nothing to
you
do
could
with
do
this
well with that on
prior.
eBay, though.
I'll leave this here for you guys.
Thank you.
Have this shellacked into the table.
You guys, the prophet Sevan Mattosian, he's calling Annie and Rich again. We'll be right back with the other athletes you should watch in 2012.
Listen up, here are a couple updates that are slightly different from last year. Pay attention to these details because you won't be able to fix these after this Sunday. First off, affiliates need to opt in order to validate scores during the open season. If you haven't done this, log on to your profile and select your affiliate from the affiliate section. If you're an athlete and you plan on competing on a team at any point in the season, you must select that team by the close of the first workout. If you haven't selected a team by Sunday, you won't be able to compete on their roster at any point later in the year. Affiliates can have multiple teams. They can also have multiple locations, and each of those locations can have their own team or teams. However, you cannot pull athletes from multiple locations onto one super team. In order to participate on a team, you must train at the same location as the other team members for at least half of your personal workouts. Just because you follow somebody else's programming doesn't mean that you're eligible for their team. If you've got other questions about games, rules, or policies, check out the Games site or email support@crossfitgames.com.
The CrossFit Games is all about the athletes, straight up. And no sport is fun without unsubstantiated claims based on anecdotal evidence and backed by raw emotion. So let's make a case for some of the athletes you should be watching in 2012.
Because we're hearing some of the same names over and over again. They're amazing. Rich Froning Jr., Annie Thorsdottir, but a lot of other athletes in the community we need to keep an eye on.
No doubt. In true CrossFit fashion, it's all about the clock. Pat and Miranda will get 30 seconds to make their case for each athlete with a 20-second rebuttal. The presenter gets the final word before we move on. Good to go?
Fair.
Got it.
Okay, Pat, we're going to start with the ladies. Your first, Lindsey Smith. 3, 2, 1, go.
Lindsey Smith, amazing athlete, Games 2009, 2010, 2011. All of that success without a coach or really a program dedicated to her weaknesses. She has that this year. Brian McKenzie's tuning her up. Technique, efficiency of movement, and she's probably one of the most, if not the most athletic lady on the field. D1 background of soccer, basketball, track, and she's a heptathlete for God's sakes. She's got the whole package. She's going to crush it this year. Can't be stopped.
With time to spare, Miranda, 20 seconds.
All right, Lindsey Smith is a friend of mine, you know
Okay.
that, but
We'll see.
she's not in Kansas anymore, or should I say Texas. She has moved to Columbus, Ohio, a much more competitive region. Hey, Pat, have you ever heard of Julie Fouché,
Nope.
Michelle Kinney, Lisa Shu? Not to mention the move took her away from her training partners there at
5
CrossFit
seconds.
Central, Carrie Kepler
2,
and Lisa Teal.
1. Okay, so you mentioned a cross-country move, but that cross-country move took Lindsey Smith to the Rogue training facility, which I have to say may be a little bit of an advantage and not a disadvantage. I'm going to go with Lindsey Smith. She's a beast. Moving on, next athlete, Pat, Jenny LeBeau.
Jenny LeBeau, unbelievable athlete. Last year was her first year in competition. Throws her hat in the ring, let's see how I'll do. Oh, I'm the 6th fittest woman on the planet, for God's sakes. Shows up with minimal experience, like I said. Olympic lifting technique wasn't that great. Big engine and things that most CrossFit athletes fear. Run a 5K, run a 10K. She would love to see that coming this year. And she has a coach, she's got a plan, so she doesn't have to worry about programming. All she does is get the workouts sent to her. She crushes them. She's going to show up as a bigger, faster, stronger Jenny LeBeau. People should be scared.
Miranda.
Jenny LeBeau, also great girl, love her, but she's in a group of athletes that's too dependent on programming. At the regionals last year, she did 4 muscle-ups in the Amanda workout, okay?
More than 3.
And that same movement hurt her at the games, as well as handstand push-ups, so high-skill movements, high-skill gymnastics movements especially,
3,
have hurt her in the
2,
past, and I don't know if she's gotten any
One
better.
time, LeBeau. I would not have argued with you on LeBeau were it not for a friend of mine named Twitter. Okay? On Jenny LeBeau's own Twitter feed says, and I quote, resting, icing, mobilizing, acupuncture, ART, turmeric, fish oil. What else for a miraculous neck injury recovery in time for the Open?
I don't like Twitter.
Yikes. That does not sound good. So I'm not convinced that we're even going to see her in the Open competition.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, Miranda, we're on to you now. Your first athlete, Elizabeth Akinwale.
Elizabeth Akinwale, one word for you.
Okay.
Productive application of force. All right, we're talking about an extensive gymnastics background on this pretty much the same frame as Annie Thorsdottir. Here's another word, modal domains. 200-foot handstand walk almost at the games, and recently got a 50-pound PR in her back squat, 285 pounds. So,
hey, you've got 5 seconds left, but I'm going to take them away because you can't count. Pat.
Thank you. But a lot of gymnastics background, that's great, but maybe that cost her. Go to her own blog. She has over 5 major knee surgeries, for God's sake. So I'm not sure that could be a factor, could not be. Also, she's following CrossFit Outlaws programming pretty religiously, which is always looks like they're doing a heavy lift followed by a Metcon that rarely exceeds the 15 to 20 minute range. So if we see another really long event in the games, I'm not sure if that's the best prep for it. And she's new to the CrossFit competition.
I cannot agree with you, Pat, on this one. I'm sorry. I think Akan is rock solid. She's new to CrossFit competition, yes. New to competition, no. I mean, she's been a competitive gymnast in her background, and she thrives on competition. In the Killer Cage event, which she won, she didn't drop off the cage, and she said it was because she heard the roars of the crowd. So she hangs on for 50 feet out and back just to hear the crowd roar. Okay, next athlete, Samantha Briggs.
say what you will about the way that it looks. Samantha Briggs is one of the strongest competitors. She's got a 374-pound deadlift, the heaviest of any games athlete that we've seen, combined with a duathlon background, so she's got so much endurance and stamina. Her only drawback to this point has been her technique, which she's traveled around the globe improving, spending time with coaches like Coach Mike Bergener for Olympic lifting. I don't think she can be stopped. She beat Annie Thorisdottir in 5 out of 11 events at the games.
Just because you're strong doesn't mean you're anywhere near the fittest person in there. So that strength needs to translate to doing well. Let's look at the Killer Cage from 2011 games. She was 5 minutes behind the leader, and what hurt her wasn't the gymnastics component, it was the actual front squat. So all that strength, she couldn't get her body in the right position to actually move the load. So she really needs to dial in that technique. And she's had a knee injury, hasn't run in about 12 weeks.
Time. Briggs, I'm gonna say that, Pat, every argument you've made against her, in my mind, is kind of conjuring up pictures of what Annie Thorisdottir was in 2009.
That's not gonna help my
She had this
argument.
enormous engine, but no technique. I think that Sam is a long way ahead of where Annie was in 2009, but still, I don't think she's ever gonna make it to the podium unless she cleans up that technique, but I think she's always gonna be top 5 for as long as we see her competing. She is a badass. 4 names to watch on the women's. Now, let's go on to the men's competition. Talked about him earlier, Pat, and you seem to like him quite a bit. Tell me about Ben Smith.
Absolutely, the kid, the prodigy, Ben Smith. Last year he took 3rd at the CrossFit Games in 2011 with a bad knee that he couldn't train below parallel leading up to the games. This year, the knee's healthy, all of his numbers are better, he's always been strong, he can lift moderate loads for higher reps this year, and his region, let's take AJ Moore out of there, Spencer Hendel out of there, Ben Smith is gonna own that thing. He can't be touched. And even Sevan said it. He's a man.
the prophecy was there.
There you go.
5 seconds left. Let's move on. Miranda.
Ben Smith is a college student studying mechanical engineering. That sounds distracting to me. I don't know about you guys, not to mention the girls and the parties, whatever else, okay? Also, as cool as it is to be a garage gym CrossFitter, I'm not convinced that Ben Smith in his garage can compete with guys like Rich Froning and beat them at the games.
I don't know. Ben Smith, last year we saw him translate all of his kind of on-paper numbers into an actual performance that got him to the podium. He's young. He's got a lot of experience under his belt as a young person. I think that we're going to see Ben Smith do very, very well again.
Well said, Rory.
Same team, same team. Next up, he's actually, lots of people don't know this, but my body double, Matthew Chan.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, Matt Chan, sure. Okay, Matt Chan, he's strong. We know that. You know, he's snatching 275 pounds. He's clean and jerking 350. He's the size of a small Kodiak bear, so that's not shocking. However, this year he has a coach in Joe Alexander, and not a virtual coach like everyone else around the world. Oh, I have a coach. We share a Google Doc. We live in different cities. No, a real coach. Look at me move and make good corrections and adjustments. Also, 29 rounds of Cindy, 210 pounds of body weight, a 5:34 mile, bumped up a little volume, and the adults gymnastics classes can't be touched.
Miranda.
Those statistics are very impressive, but call me when he can do all of those things on the same day. Matt Chan is 33 years old. He has a hard time recovering, which he said himself. He doesn't like to do multiple workouts in a day, and he's good at gymnastics for a guy his size. That's not going to cut it anymore. Not against guys like Rich and Dan Bailey.
I'm happy to cut you off there. I'm happy to cut you off there. You say that he's too old. Well, what about Bill Grundler? The dude's going to be in the 45 to 49 age group before
Bill
we know
Grundler's
it.
not in the game
Still
either.
killing it. Still killing it. Matt Chan, dude, strength and technique, double threat guy. And believe me, I'm not just jaded by my love of the individual. Matt Chan, I think, amazing athlete. I truly do think he's been winning so many competitions that weren't the games. The USAW thing in 2010. He had the partner thing with Chris Spieler at the UFC event. I think that this is the year of the Chan. Okay,
so.
Moving on to our next athlete, the 2010 champion, Graham Holmberg.
People love to forget about the 2010 champ. However, he has the best returning record of any return champion on the guys' side. First in 2010, fourth in 2011. He went into that last event in 10th place, came out in fourth. He's a clutch athlete. Not to mention, he's also gotten some coaching this year, which has made him improve in a lot of areas, including getting stronger with the help of Mr. Louis Simmons. I've heard rumors of a 525-pound deadlift from Graham.
That'll do.
One, and on to Pat.
Okay, great athlete for sure. Recent knee injury, just going to throw that out there like a little grenade. Also, this segment is about athletes that are exciting to watch, and I love Graham, but he's not an exciting athlete to watch at the regionals or the Open, right? He always just does kind of well and is somewhere in the middle. 2010 when he won, he almost didn't even make it to the games. Central East Regional, he took third, barely by 1 point, had Dan Bailey's calf not cramped up. We might not even know who Graham Holmberg is. Last year, 37th
statement.
in the
I'm going to
Open.
cut you off there. Bold statement. I will agree with you that lots of people like to overlook Graham. I think that it's because he's so consistent. He doesn't stand out in any one area. Not great for being the most popular athlete, but fantastic for winning events, which is, at the end of the day, what's really important. So Graham this year, last year we talked a lot about this is Rich Froning's revenge year. I think that it's Graham's revenge year this year.
We'll see.
So moving on, Christopher Spieler, and I can see kind of the hearts kind of bubbling in both of your heads. So don't get clouded by emotion. Miranda, tell me about Spieler.
I have not one, but 5 reasons that you should like Chris Spieler for this year's games. 2007, 8, 9, 10, and 11. After this year, it's going to be 6 in 2012. He is ready. He's taken a different approach this year. He's gained some weight and gotten a lot stronger. Huge PRs in Olympic lifts and some of the slower lifts, but it's not hurting things like 30 muscle-ups per time, which he's also PRing in. He can't be stopped. He's the most mentally tough athlete that we've seen on the games floor ever.
Oh, okay, all right. Ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you stalling?
Yeah, I'm stalling, exactly. All right. But we have to discuss the flip side, right? I love Spiel too, but the mere fact that you have a milkshake every night and you're a little bit bigger doesn't mean you're going to start crushing the competition, okay?
Damn it!
Spiel had a known formula for kicking ass and making it to the games every year. That's unprecedented. Why would you mess with something like that? This is an experiment. I don't know if it's going to go well or go poorly.
I'm going to agree with your last point. It is a huge experiment. It's going to be maybe a validation of concept for a lot of people who just want to hear, oh yeah, you should lift heavy every time you work out. But I'm not sure which way it's going to go either. The other thing we haven't mentioned yet, and I can kind of speak to this a little bit myself, Spieler's got a 2-week-old baby. How old is his
Very
something
young.
like
I
that,
mean,
yeah.
that is sleep depravity at its best. So recovery being such an important element, and having those life factors factor in. You can say the same thing for Jason Khalipa and a few other people, but I'm not sure how that's going to come into play. But Chris Spieler is such a strong athlete and such a fun person to watch that it's almost impossible to argue against him. Okay, it all starts tomorrow, baby. The anticipation, the speculation, it's all done at 5 p.m. Pacific when workout number 1 of the Open will be announced.
And again, I can't believe it's here already, hearing you say that. I'm nervous, but I'm excited. I'm registered. The greatest part about the Open is, to get to play worldwide with the whole community, so let's do this.
Okay, Miranda, Pat, this has been magical. I'm happy to be back. This is amazing. Thank you all for joining us. Remember, the Games website is your ticket to any format changes and the most up-to-date information. Okay, get registered. If you're not already, hit it hard. We'll see you right back here next week. Let's go work out.
All right, let's do it.
Obviously.